Welcome to this tutorial podcast from LingExam Language Academy. Today, we're going to explore one of the most important essay types you'll encounter in IELTS Writing Task 2, the opinion essay. This lesson is designed to help you understand exactly how to write a strong, clear, and well-structured opinion essay that can help you achieve the band score you're aiming for. We'll go through everything step by step, with plenty of examples to make sure you understand each concept completely. So, let's get started. First, let's talk about what an opinion essay actually is. In IELTS Writing Task 2, you'll often see questions that ask for your personal view on a particular topic. These questions typically include a specific phrase that you need to recognize. The phrase is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? When you see this phrase, you know immediately that you're being asked to write an opinion essay. The examiners want to know your position on the statement they've given you. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? Or do you perhaps agree with some parts but not others? Your job is to make your position absolutely clear and then support it with strong reasons and examples throughout your essay. Now, understanding the structure of an opinion essay is crucial for your success. Think of structure as the skeleton of your essay. Without a strong skeleton, everything falls apart. A high-scoring opinion essay should follow a 4-paragraph structure, and I want you to remember this format because it works every single time. Let's go through each paragraph and what it should contain. Your first paragraph is the introduction. In this paragraph, you need to do two main things. First, you need to paraphrase the question. This means you take the statement from the question and rewrite it using different words. This shows the examiner that you understand the topic and that you have good vocabulary skills. Second, you need to clearly state your opinion. Are you agreeing, disagreeing, or partially agreeing? Make this crystal clear from the very beginning. For example, if the question says, modern technology is making people less creative, you might paraphrase it as, some people believe that technological advances are reducing human creativity. And then add your opinion by saying, I completely disagree with this view. Your second paragraph is your first body paragraph. This is where you present your first main reason for your opinion. You can't just state a reason and leave it hanging there. You need to develop it fully. This means explaining why this reason is important and then supporting it with a specific example or piece of evidence. Let's say you're writing about why you disagree that technology reduces creativity. Your first reason might be that technology provides new tools for creative expression. You would then explain this by talking about how digital art, software, music production programs, and video editing tools have opened up entirely new forms of creativity that didn't exist before. Then you'd give a specific example, perhaps mentioning how millions of people now create and share their artwork on platforms like Instagram or YouTube, something that would have been impossible 30 years ago. Your third paragraph is your second body paragraph, and it follows exactly the same pattern as the first body paragraph. You present your second main reason for your opinion, develop it with explanation, and support it with another example or further evidence. Continuing with our technology and creativity example, your second reason might be that technology makes creative resources more accessible to everyone. You could explain that in the past, only people with expensive equipment or formal training could engage in certain creative activities. But now anyone with a smartphone can learn to play an instrument through free apps, write and publish their own books, or create professional-looking photographs. You might give the example of how online learning platforms have made it possible for people in remote areas to learn creative skills from world-class instructors without ever leaving their homes. Your fourth and final paragraph is the conclusion. This is where you wrap everything up neatly. You need to summarize your main points briefly, but don't just copy what you wrote before. Use different words to express the same ideas. Then, restate your opinion one final time to remind the examiner where you stand. Make sure your conclusion is consistent with everything you've written in the body paragraphs. If you said you completely disagree in your introduction, don't suddenly become uncertain in your conclusion. Stay firm and clear. Let's talk about why stating your opinion clearly is so important in IELTS. One of the 4 criteria that examiners use to score your essay is called task response. This criterion looks at how well you've answered the question and whether your position is clear throughout the entire essay. Your opinion must be obvious from the introduction all the way through to the conclusion. It needs to be consistent, meaning you don't change your mind halfway through, and it must be fully supported with reasons and examples. If your opinion is vague or unclear, you'll lose marks on task response, and this can significantly lower your overall band score. So, how do you express your opinion clearly? There are many ways to do this, and I want to give you several examples so you can choose the style that feels most natural to you. You might say, I completely agree with the idea that regular exercise is essential for good health. Notice how direct and clear this is. There's no confusion about where you stand. You could also say, I strongly disagree with the view that children should not use technology until they're teenagers. Again, very clear and direct. Another option is to acknowledge that some people think differently, but then state your own view firmly, like this. While some people may argue that homework is unnecessary, I believe it plays a vital role in reinforcing what students learn in class. This approach shows that you're aware of other perspectives, but you're still making your own position absolutely clear. What you want to avoid are vague phrases that don't really tell the examiner what you think. Don't write things like, there are many sides to this issue, without then clearly stating which side you support. Avoid phrases like, it depends, unless you immediately explain what it depends on and then give your clear opinion. Don't say, this statement is somewhat true, because somewhat is too vague. Does that mean you mostly agree? Partly agree? The examiner shouldn't have to guess. Remember, clarity is always more important than trying to sound complex or sophisticated. A simple, clear opinion statement will always score better than a complicated, confusing one. Now, let's address an important question that many students ask. Can you partially agree in an opinion essay? The answer is yes, you absolutely can. However, and this is crucial, your essay must still maintain a clear line of reasoning. Partial agreement doesn't mean you write a balanced discussion where you give equal weight to both sides. That would turn your opinion essay into a discussion essay, which is a different question type entirely. When you partially agree, you're saying, I see some truth in this statement, but overall I lean more toward this particular view. You recognize both sides, but you emphasize your main position. Let me give you an example. Imagine the question is about social media and whether it helps people stay connected. You might write, Although I agree that social media helps people maintain contact with friends and family who live far away, I believe it causes more harm than good because it reduces meaningful face-to-face interactions and can negatively impact mental health. See how this works? You've acknowledged one positive aspect, but you've made it clear that you think the negatives outweigh that positive. Your essay would then focus mainly on explaining why you think social media causes more harm, while briefly acknowledging the connection benefit. Planning your essay is something that many students skip because they're worried about time. But I'm going to tell you something important. Those 3 to 5 minutes you spend planning will actually save you time and will dramatically improve your essay quality. Let me walk you through the planning steps. First, analyze the question carefully. Underline the key words and pay attention to the instruction words. If it says, "To what extent do you agree or disagree?" you know you need to give your opinion. If it says, "Discuss both views and give your opinion," that's a different essay type. Make sure you understand exactly what's being asked. Second, decide your opinion. Are you going to agree, disagree, or partially agree? Make this decision quickly and stick with it. Third, brainstorm reasons. Think of 2 or 3 strong reasons that support your opinion. Don't try to think of 10 reasons. Just focus on 2 or 3 that you can develop fully. Fourth, think of examples. For each reason, try to think of a specific example, whether it's from real life, from your own experience, or even a hypothetical example that makes logical sense. Fifth, outline your structure. Quickly jot down a simple plan showing what each paragraph will contain. This might just be a few words for each paragraph, but it will keep you organized as you write. Using good sentence starters throughout your essay will make your writing flow more naturally and will boost your scores for both coherence and cohesion and lexical resource. Let me give you plenty of examples for each part of your essay. For your introduction, you might start with phrases like, "It is often argued that modern cities are becoming too crowded," or "Some people believe that university education should be free for all students." These phrases help you paraphrase the question naturally. Then, when you state your opinion, you can say, "In my opinion, I completely agree with the idea that governments should invest more in renewable energy," or, "From my perspective, I strongly disagree with the notion that money is the most important factor in job satisfaction." For your body paragraphs, you need sentence starters that introduce your reasons and examples. You might say, "One major reason why I agree is that public transportation reduces traffic congestion in urban areas." This clearly signals that you're about to explain your first main point. When you want to introduce an example, you could write, "For example, studies have shown that cities with extensive subway systems experience significantly fewer traffic jams during rush hour." Or, to illustrate this point, we can look at countries like Denmark, where cycling infrastructure has reduced car dependency dramatically. When you're moving to your second body paragraph, you might write, "Another compelling argument is that public transport is more environmentally sustainable than private vehicles," or, furthermore, "Investing in buses and trains creates numerous employment opportunities." For your conclusion, you want to signal that you're wrapping up and restating your position. You could write, "In conclusion, I firmly believe that the benefits of public transportation far outweigh any disadvantages. Or, to summarize, the evidence clearly suggests that government investment in public transport is essential for modern cities. These phrases help your essay feel complete and well organized. Let me share some real examples of IELTS opinion essay questions so you can see what they actually look like. Here's one about technology. Some people think that modern technology is making people more sociable, while others believe it is making them less sociable. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Notice how this question presents two opposing views but still asks for your opinion. You would need to decide which view you support or whether you partially agree with both. Here's one about education. University education should be free for everyone, regardless of their financial background. To what extent do you agree or disagree? This is a more straightforward statement where you can clearly agree or disagree. And here's one about the environment. Only governments can make a real difference in protecting the environment. Individuals can do very little. To what extent do you agree or disagree? This question is testing whether you think environmental protection is solely a government responsibility or whether individuals also play an important role. Now, let me walk you through a complete essay outline so you can see how all these elements come together. Imagine the essay topic is: some people believe that the government should invest more in public transport rather than roads. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Let's plan this essay together. In your introduction, you would paraphrase the question by saying something like, some argue that public transportation systems deserve more government funding than road construction projects. Then you'd state your thesis clearly. I completely agree that investment should prioritize public transport over road development. Now you've set up your essay perfectly. In your first body paragraph, you would present your first reason. You might say that public transport reduces traffic congestion. Then you develop this idea by explaining that when cities have efficient bus, train, or subway systems, fewer people need to drive their own cars. This means less traffic on the roads, shorter commute times, and less stress for everyone. Then you'd support this with a specific example. You could mention that cities like Tokyo and Singapore have invested heavily in their subway systems, and as a result, they experience far fewer traffic jams than cities of similar size that rely mainly on roads. You might add that studies have shown that one subway train can carry as many people as 50 cars, making it a much more efficient use of space. In your second body paragraph, you'd present your second reason. Perhaps you'd argue that public transport is more environmentally sustainable. You'd explain that buses and trains produce fewer emissions per passenger than private cars, especially when they use electric or hybrid technology. You'd develop this by discussing how reducing the number of cars on the road leads to better air quality and helps combat climate change. Then you'd give another specific example. You might mention that electric buses in cities like London have significantly reduced carbon dioxide emissions compared to older diesel vehicles. You could also point out that when people use public transport instead of driving, cities need fewer parking lots, which means more space can be used for parks and green areas. In your conclusion, you would reaffirm your agreement by saying something like, "For these reasons, I firmly believe that government funding should prioritize public transportation systems." Not only does this approach reduce traffic congestion, but it also contributes to environmental sustainability and improves the quality of urban life. Notice how this conclusion summarizes your main points without simply repeating them word for word, and it clearly restates your opinion. Now, let's talk about common mistakes that students make in opinion essays, because understanding what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. One major mistake is not stating a clear opinion. Some students try to sit on the fence, presenting both sides equally without making their own position clear. This reduces your task response score because you haven't fully answered the question. Remember, the question asks what you think, so you need to tell them. Another mistake is turning your opinion essay into a discussion essay. If you spend equal time discussing both sides of the argument without emphasizing your own view, the examiner will think you've misunderstood the question type. A third common mistake is not including examples. Some students write their reasons, but don't support them with any specific examples or evidence. This weakens your argument significantly. Your examples don't have to be from scientific studies or famous cases. They just need to be logical and relevant to your point. Another mistake is writing an off-topic response. This happens when students don't read the question carefully and end up writing about something related but not exactly what was asked. For example, if the question asks whether governments should invest in public transport, don't write an essay about the history of transportation or about different types of vehicles. Stay focused on the specific question. Some students also use informal language, writing phrases like, "I think it's kinda true," or "lots of people do this stuff." Remember, IELTS Writing Task 2 requires formal academic English. Finally, some students repeat the question too closely in their introduction without properly paraphrasing. This doesn't demonstrate vocabulary range and can hurt your lexical resource score. Let me answer some frequently asked questions that students often have about opinion essays. First question, can I use first-person language like "I believe" or "in my opinion"? Yes, absolutely. IELTS opinion essays specifically ask for your personal view, so using first-person language is not only acceptable but expected. Just make sure you maintain a formal tone overall. You can say, "I believe," or "I think," or "in my view," but avoid casual expressions like "I reckon" or "I feel like." Second question, should I mention both sides of the argument? This depends on your position. If you completely agree or completely disagree, you should focus entirely on your chosen view. You don't need to discuss the opposing side. However, if you partially agree, then yes, you should briefly acknowledge both sides, but still make it clear which side you lean toward more strongly. The key is that your main position should always be obvious and should take up most of your essay. Third question, do I need to include real-world examples? Your examples don't necessarily have to be real, but they should be logical and relevant. If you can think of real examples from news, history, or your own experience, that's great. But if you can't, you can create hypothetical examples that make sense. For instance, you could say, if a city invested in a new subway line, residents would likely experience shorter commute times and reduced stress. This is a logical, hypothetical example that supports your point. Fourth question, is it okay to say, I agree to some extent. Yes, this is perfectly fine, and it's a way of expressing partial agreement. However, you must still show which side you lean toward more and support that position clearly. Don't just say, I agree to some extent, and then give equal weight to both sides. Make your main position clear and develop it more fully than the opposing view. Let me give you a checklist that you can use when writing your opinion essays. Before you start writing, make sure you underline the keywords in the prompt so you understand exactly what's being asked. Decide clearly whether you agree, disagree, or partially agree. Choose 2 or 3 strong reasons that support your position. Plan what examples you'll use for each reason. While you're writing, make sure you paraphrase the question in your introduction rather than copying it. Use a clear thesis statement that tells the examiner your position. Stick to your position throughout the essay and don't contradict yourself. Use linking words naturally to connect your ideas. Words like furthermore, however, for example, and in addition. Avoid repeating the same words and phrases over and over. Try to use synonyms and varied sentence structures. After you finish writing, count your words to make sure you've written at least 250 words. The ideal length is between 260 and 280 words. Check your grammar and spelling carefully. Read through your essay quickly to catch any obvious errors. Finally, make sure that each paragraph clearly supports your opinion and that your position is consistent from beginning to end. Writing an effective opinion essay in IELTS Task 2 is not about being complex or using the most difficult vocabulary you can think of. It's about being clear, logical, and relevant. Choose your position confidently. Structure your essay in a logical way with 4 clear paragraphs, and support each idea with specific explanations and examples. When you follow this approach, you'll be meeting all the requirements of the IELTS band descriptors. You'll score well on task response because you've answered the question fully and made your position clear. You'll score well on coherence and cohesion because your essay is well organized and your ideas flow logically from one to the next. You'll score well on lexical resource because you've used a range of vocabulary appropriately and you've paraphrased effectively. And you'll score well on grammatical range and accuracy because you've used a variety of sentence structures correctly. Most importantly, by following the techniques we've covered in this lesson, you'll be able to express your opinion with confidence. You won't feel uncertain about what to write or how to organize your ideas. You'll have a clear method that works every single time you encounter an opinion essay question. Practice this structure with different topics, and soon it will become second nature to you. Congratulations on completing this comprehensive lesson on IELTS opinion essays. You've learned so much today, from understanding what an opinion essay is, to mastering the 4-paragraph structure, to expressing your opinion clearly, to avoiding common mistakes. This is a significant step forward in your IELTS preparation journey, and you should feel proud of the time and effort you've invested in improving your writing skills. Now, let's talk about how you can review and reinforce everything you've learned today. First, I recommend that you listen to this lesson again, but this time take notes. Write down the key points, the sentence starters, and the examples that resonated most with you. Second, try to summarize the main points of this lesson in your own words. This will help you process the information more deeply. Third, Practice by choosing one of the sample questions we discussed and spend 15 minutes planning an essay. Don't write the full essay yet. Just create a detailed outline with your opinion, your 2 main reasons, and your examples. Fourth, compare your outline with the structure we discussed. Does it follow the 4-paragraph format? Is your opinion clear? Are your reasons well supported? Fifth, once you feel confident with planning, write a complete practice essay. Time yourself and aim to finish in 40 minutes, just like in the real test. Sixth, after writing, review your essay using the checklist we covered. Check whether your opinion is clear, whether you've included examples, whether your conclusion matches your introduction, and whether you've used appropriate formal language. Finally, if possible, ask a teacher or a friend who's good at English to read your essay and give you feedback. We'd like to invite you to visit LingExam Language Academy's website at lingexam.com. This platform is specifically designed to help learners like you improve your English knowledge and skills in a structured and effective way. Whether you're preparing for IELTS or simply want to enhance your overall English proficiency, LingExam offers comprehensive resources, expert guidance, and practical materials that can support your learning journey. The website provides clear explanations, numerous examples, and practice opportunities that will help you build confidence in all areas of English. If you want to study IELTS Academic Writing Task to much deeper and guarantee your high band score, we have excellent news for you. You can visit lingexam.com and study with our dedicated course called Mastering IELTS Academic Writing Task 2 completely free. This course covers all the essay types you'll encounter in the test, provides detailed strategies for each one, offers sample essays at different band levels, and gives you the tools you need to achieve your target score. The course is designed to take you step by step through every aspect of Task 2 writing, from understanding the question types to planning your essays, to writing with clarity and accuracy, to reviewing and improving your work. Thank you so much for joining us today at LingExam Language Academy. We wish you the very best in your IELTS preparation and in all your future English learning endeavours. Remember, success in IELTS writing comes from understanding the requirements, practicing regularly, and approaching each essay with confidence and clarity. Keep practicing. Stay focused, and you will achieve your goals.